What is your ownership policy? I thought I'd do a quick video today on ownership policy because it's one thing I've noticed that doesn't really get talked about too much, yet in my opinion, it's kind of a big deal within any recruiting department setting. I've seen ownership policies as short as 72 hours. I've seen ownership policies as long as you get the file for lifetime, as long as you still work here. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer when it comes to ownership policy, but I think you can hone in on an ownership policy that might make more sense with your department over other ownership policies. I think oftentimes these policies get overlooked and they don't get enough thought. I see most carriers today gravitate to the 30-day rule. 30 days ownership of the file. My question is, where does that 30 days come from and how exactly does that 30 days make any sense? I know there's 30 days in a month, but does it really take 30 days to recruit a driver? In most cases, probably not. I will share today with everybody what Right Turn Recruiting's ownership policy is and why we honed in on our current policy. Right Turn Recruiting uses a 10-day rule. It's not a hard 10-day rule from the day you start working to the file. You don't have 10 days to hire the guy. How our rule works is you have 10 days from your last note. So if I get a new applicant on Monday and I leave a note on Monday, and then Tuesday comes and I leave another note, and then Wednesday comes and I leave another note, okay? And that's the last note I leave on Wednesday. That's when the ownership policy starts. We're always looking back at the last time you engaged with that driver. All of our recruiters leave notes on every single conversation they have. If you stop leaving notes, that's when the 10-day rule applies. So if that same driver calls in 15 days later and the next recruiter gets the file, we're looking that driver up. Oh, we see that you worked with a different recruiter 15 days ago, but they haven't left a note. That is fair game. I'm gonna take that driver and now help that candidate out. That is step one of a two-step ownership policy we have in play. Step two makes that file come alive to the next recruiter even quicker. If recruiter one disqualifies a driver, moves a driver to not interested, if that recruiter hides that driver from their work list and does not have a follow-up date, in other words, in short, if that recruiter has no interest in working that driver again anytime soon, the next recruiter can jump in literally that same moment and take ownership of that file, whether it's the next day or an hour later, okay? I want, as an owner, for our recruiters to be aggressive, and I think you probably do too. We also want to keep our recruiters happy, and I think the best way to keep recruiters happy is to have a policy in play that is fair. So the one thing I will do to rebuttal the 30-day rule is oftentimes a recruiter will work a driver and they'll have a conversation, and oftentimes recruiters will email the driver, okay? And then 28 days goes by, and then the same driver comes in via another lead source. Did that first recruiter close the driver? Absolutely not. Why should that file go back to that same recruiter that essentially dropped the ball? As a recruiting manager, I want the second recruiter to take a stab at this driver to see if they can get some results and help that driver and get this driver a great driving job. So I think the 10-day policy is a great policy. If I'm actively working a driver, whether it takes 10 days or 100 days, if I'm actively leaving notes on a file, I don't have to worry about anything. I'm working this guy, he's got maybe summer plans coming up or he's got a wedding coming up, and we're kind of just keep, texting and talking, throughout the days or weeks or even months. I mean, I've recruited drivers where it's taken me 9 or 10 months to get the hire, and I engage with them throughout that entire time. So if your recruiters are doing that, they have nothing to worry about. They always have a note within the last 10 days where they're gonna claim ownership on that file. Or if I'm talking to a driver and I don't think he qualifies. I think from the information he told me, he's got too many tickets, too many accidents, too many jobs, not the right attitude, maybe he's just having a bad day. I'm gonna move this guy to disqualified. If this guy calls again tomorrow, the next recruiter can see that I disqualified the driver, or maybe I moved him to not interested, or maybe I hid him from my work list with no follow-up date. Anybody can work that file tomorrow. That conversation might go totally different with the next recruiter. When you're working with people, a lot of times people gel and they work really well together. They get along, they have a lot in common. Sometimes recruiters don't gel. You know, the conversation just kind of gets off to a sour start. The recruiter's having a bad day. The driver's having a bad day. It's just a slow start. It's a bad conversation. I don't think I could ever help this guy. Not interested. Next driver. But the sun comes up again tomorrow. That same driver applies again. And the next recruiter has a shot at it. Maybe that next recruiter hires that driver. I've seen it happen 100 times. It's possible. With the proper ownership policy in play, you will drive more results. You will drive more hires. And the best part is you will keep your recruiters happier because they're not going to be stressed out. Man, I got to give this file back to this recruiter who clearly did not close the driver. So I'm not going to spend any time with the driver. I'm just going to hide it from my work list. And if they want to, call that recruiter back, more power to them. So I would say for best results when it comes to ownership policy, come up with a policy that's as short as possible, but still fair to your recruiter. I love the 10-day rule that we have implemented based on the last note. It works well for us. What works well for you? Drop a line in the comments. What's your current ownership policy? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Have a great day, everybody. Hope this video is helpful.